We're in the Parque de Amigos de Marti, which is the Park of the Friends of Jose Marti. And this is basically a monument to Jose Marti, who was a Cuban revolutionary, but that's almost a bit of an understatement. He was sort of the Cuban revolutionary, the ideological voice of Cuban independence. He was responsible for raising money for the Cuban independence movement in the 1890s and before. He was really kind of the rallying voice for Cuban independence. Really, Tampa was the first exile community for Cubans in the United States. There was Key West a little bit earlier in the 1870s, and then by the 1880s and by the 1890s, really the center of the Cuban exile community had shifted here to Tampa, and Marti was here to kind of rally the faithful. Marti's goal was really to unite the cigar workers in revolution. Previous revolutionary effort, the 10 Years' War for Cuban independence, kind of ended in a bit of a stalemate, and Marti really realized that in order for revolution to be successful, he would have to join the elites of Cuba together with the working class, and that meant the cigar workers primarily. And he did that by delivering speeches on the steps of cigar factories and meeting with supporters here, and really kind of strategizing the revolutionary effort from here in Tampa and also in New York City and other places. This park actually used to be a boarding house. It was owned by two Cuban exiles named Roberto and Paulina Pedroso, and they operated a boarding house here on this site. And when Marti would come to Tampa, he would stay with the Pedroso family. So the Pedroso family returned to Cuba after the Spanish-American War, and the house changed hands several times, and eventually the family that owned it in the 1940s and 50s also returned to Cuba, and they deeded the property to the government of Cuba, the Estado Cubano. So the property has remained, actually in name at least, technically Cuban property since then. As far as we know, it is the only piece of Cuban soil in the United States. Marti was killed in battle. He was actually killed in 1895 at the Battle of Dos Rios, which is the Battle of Two Rivers. It was one of the first skirmishes in what the Cubans call the War for Cuban Independence. It's what we know today as the Spanish-American War, but in fact, that conflict began in 1895. Cubans were fighting for their independence in Cuba, and unfortunately, Jose Marti, against the wishes of the military leadership, marched into battle and was killed. Jose Marti continues to be a very symbolic figure for both Cuban Americans and Cubans living on the island. When you fly into Havana, you fly into Jose Marti International Airport. So the memory of Marti, the legacy of Marti is invoked by both Cubans living here in America and also Cubans living on the island.